On the YouTube, we'll let this notifications go out so that the world can tune in. A lot more people tune in live on YouTube than they do on the Facebook sometimes because they don't have a Facebook, so they want to tune in. So, quick, we're going to be talking about the motion hearing that happened today. We're going to talk about kind of how and what they talked about. I'll answer some questions. Yo, Miss Alex, how are you doing? Let me make sure my live chat's on here. Perfect. And so I'm going to go over. We were in the courtroom. We were there when Patrick arrived. I'll talk about that. That's a funny story. Talked with a couple of people in the courtroom. I talked with the Kleins a little bit. I talked with Sam. I talked with who else did I talk with? Said hello to a couple other people. But I'll tell you about my. I'm basically going to give you a recap of my day because there are some things that happened that you don't know about that were rather interesting in my mind because of how they went down. I will tell you that I did snitch on some people today. I did play I was a snitch today, and my wife, I don't know if my wife tweeted that out, but I was a snitch today. I ain't gonna lie. Y'all can call me snitch with the phone, because I snitched on some folks. So, and I feel bad for doing it after I did it, but I kind of don't feel bad for doing it. So if I forget to tell you how I snitched, y'all remind me in chat because I want to tell that story. It's a good one. I'll tell it. So, snitches get snitches, stitches. I know, right? I did snitch today. Maybe I should tell that story first since it's kind of funny. It'll be at the beginning of this video. So, if you're just joining, I haven't given any info out. I just barely kicked this live video off. I'm going to be talking about the motion hearing today, kind of a recap of what happened. So, I'll tell you, 2 days ago, my wife asked me if I was going to go to this thing, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go. Only because I'm tired. Like, of I'm tired of this. Um, Not tired of the I'm tired of the case. I'm tired of looking at stuff at the system. Like when you go and actually sit in the system and you watch this, it's one thing to get a tweet. It's one thing to watch it on TV. But when you go in when you put yourself in the same room, when you put yourself in the same room with the energy that is happening in that room, it is a draining situation. And so, but I'm committed. I committed to the game at the beginning, so I'm committed to follow this through. I am trying to figure out how in the world I could go to a 3 week trial. Like I'm gonna have to find a sponsor. Like that means I'm literally gonna have to take 3 weeks off of work to commit to a trial, and I'm not getting paid for this like a news organization. So let's start there. First of all, let's say this. Me and my wife had a plan to get up and watch the sunrise come up over Cripple Creek. That plan was kind of ruined by a late night last night. So we had a late night. And so we ended up not getting out of here till around, I think we got out of here at around 6 o'clock or so, 6ish. You'll have to check the live video. I could be totally wrong on that. Maybe it was later. Maybe it was 6:30. But I think we got out of here just past 6, and we drove to Cripple Creek. It was a beautiful morning drive. You can check that drive out on online on Facebook at Dad with a Phone. I would totally do YouTube lives, but they freaking don't do as good as Facebook lives do when you don't have internet. So if you're just working on your data plan. So you can go check out the drive to Cripple Creek. We talk about it a little bit. When we pulled into Cripple Creek, we stopped because my wife forgot her water bottle, and we had to get some water at the gas station. And we got some extra coffee and this, that, and the other, which then put us at the courthouse at like 7 o'clock. So we got to the courthouse basically an hour before the courthouse even opens. Just out of kind of rhythm and out of being to go into these court hearings, I know that Patrick is going to show up anywhere between 7 and 8, right? But it's been more like 7:30 today. I assumed, and we all know what happens when you assume. I assumed he would get there later because his court hearing didn't start till 9 o'clock. Some of the court hearings have started at 8:30, and they have he's been there as early as 7 o'clock. So I assumed he was going to be there between 7:30 and 8. Well, it turns out he got there at 7:15. Now, me and my wife pulled in at 7 o'clock. I had to go to the restroom thanks to coffee, and I ran down to a casino and used the restroom. And when I came back, Patrick was already there. I would have been really upset, but here's the deal: my wife didn't see Patrick pull in. None of the news reporters. If you see video of Patrick walking out of a transport vehicle, if you see him walking out of the transport vehicle into the courthouse, if you see that on the news, none of that is from today. The only person who caught video of Patrick walking into the courthouse is Dad with the phone, and you can check the live video on Facebook. That's the only video of Patrick Frazee walking into court today. And the only reason it got caught is because I set my phone on live pointing towards the courthouse, and you can see no one else knew what was going on. The reporters didn't catch him. No news reporters caught video of it. I am mad at myself because I should have used that opportunity to get good video of him, and I didn't. But definitely the only video caught of Patrick going into the courthouse today, and it's not even really good video, but it is video, is on a live video of mine on Facebook. So you can check that out on Facebook. So Patrick sneaks in. He basically sneaks in and doesn't get video seen of him. And hey, props to Teller County, props to Cripple Creek for not throwing up the banner, because normally what happens is Cripple Creek comes out and handles the roadblocks. And when you see him handling the roadblocks, that means Teller County's in the house and they're coming down the drag and they're about to drop off Patrick. Today, Cripple Creek made a decision not to handle the roadblocks. And what happened because of that decision, the news reporters didn't get tipped off. And so Patrick got to slide in and didn't get his picture taken. Now, I was talking to Sam about that, and I was like, man, just go into the library. Y'all got a vault of him walking in and out 300 times. You don't need his video today. And I said the only reason that video would become important is if something happened to Patrick in the courthouse and he didn't walk out of the courthouse. In other words, if there was an assassination attempt or something happened where somebody tried to hurt Patrick, and the only video that was of him walking into the courthouse would have been Dad with the phone's telephone video from across the street. But nonetheless, the only video that is officially him walking in today is from Dad with the phone's phone. So anyway, the court decorum for today actually stayed pretty consistent with what it's been since they've started, which is they don't allow now any pictures inside the courthouse. You can't take a picture of a wall hanger. You can't take a picture of a radio. You can't take a picture of anything in the courthouse. So once you enter the courthouse, the only thing that you can use on your telephone, you can't use any recording devices on your telephone, whether it be audio and or video recording. So nobody's allowed to take pictures within the courthouse. If you saw a picture that I posted today from Twitter of like me in the courthouse, that wasn't taken today. If you saw a picture of of something that like Dan May in the court or inside the courtroom or any of that. If you saw that on my Twitter, none of those pictures were taken today because you're not allowed to take any pictures inside the courthouse on these days. They put the court decorum right on the walls. So, I mean, right on the door. So you're not allowed to do that. So we get in the courtroom, we get in the courthouse, we're inside. By the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you can follow my Twitter at Michael E. Dalton, and you can go back and read my long, crazy Twitter rants from today, from everything that whether Patrick was what he was wearing, on who else was in the courtroom, on different things like that. But I'm going to go over that. So if you want to stick around for a second, hit like and subscribe on this YouTube channel and watch this video, and you're going to get all that info of me recounting it. But if I miss something, or if I don't talk about something, or if I need to go back, you can always go back and look at my tweets, or I suggest going back and looking at Sam Kramer's tweets. He does a good job. So my wife goes into the courthouse first with one of her friends. They get into the courthouse. I stay outside for a little bit. One, for a couple of reasons. I wanted to see who else was going to show up and walk into the courthouse. I wanted to see family members. I wanted to see other suspects. I wanted to see if other people from around town who was going to show in. There was a couple of people that showed up that had been showing up at all the court hearings. The Kleins. Many of you have been introduced to the Clinton Klein, and many of you have been introduced to Pam Klein via Dad with the Phone. So Clinton Klein did an interview on Dateline, the same Dateline I was featured on, The Vanishing. If you haven't seen that, you can actually watch that on my Facebook page, or you can watch it on my YouTube channel too. They let me put it on my YouTube channel. So the Kleins showed up both, and the Kleins were personal, professional acquaintances of Patrick. Clinton Klein is in charge of the donkeys around town, and Patrick came out and trimmed the horses' hooves and trimmed the donkeys' hooves. They were there today. A few other people who are longtime friends of Patrick Frazee, Sheila Frazee, a lot of some longtime friends of the Frazees were there today. Erin Frazee and her partner, I don't know her partner's name, they were there today, and they were actually talked about quite a bit in the motion hearing. We'll get to that. The most of your normal reporters, you had your New York reporter with Dateline. He was there. You had a couple of freelance producers with Dateline that were there. You had all your normal local guys, Sam and Ashley, and a couple other local talking head reporters. You had a couple of new guys that were there that I didn't quite I didn't get introduced to them, but they were like, some reporters that were new to the whole game here in Cripple Creek. They didn't know exactly how the decorum had worked, but everyone knew who they were, so I'm thinking they were some big shots from out of town with the networks, because one of the guys was asking a lot of questions and hitting a lot of little pointers on some stuff, but he wasn't real keen on some things. So a couple of new reporters in the house today. There were some public defender investigators were there, as well as it looked like probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 other people that were with the public defender's office. The reason why I know they were with the public defender's office is because they were sitting in reserved seats that are reserved for counsel on that side of the courtroom. So there were a couple of investigators and probably a couple of legal aides from the public defender's office. DA Dan May was in the house. The white hair lady, somebody knows her name, Betty something, or maybe that's the other lady. But there are a couple of ladies with the DA's office that were there. The main DA who's going to argue this case, she was there today. Dan May was in the building. And people have to realize Dan May doesn't go to court anymore. He doesn't handle a lot of court hearings. He doesn't go to court. That doesn't mean he hasn't. I'm just saying he doesn't attend court on a regular basis, but he has definitely taken a liking and a specific interest in this case, and so he's showing up at this case. But he's not just attending every murder case that the 4th Judicial District handles. He's not attending every criminal case that the 4th Judicial District handles. Dan May has taken a special liking to the Patrick Frazee case and is showing his face more than he's shown his face in a lot of other instances in recent years. So the DA's office, as far as family, Aaron Frazee, Shelley, or Sheila, I didn't see anyone that I could recognize as part of the Berreth family. But listen, I have been very, very. I've tried to be very respectful when it comes to the family and identifying and picturing and videoing the Berreth family. I believe the Berreth family is victims. They're victims. They're victims. Not only they're victims of this circumstance. They're victim of this media and social media circus that happens. And so I have tried to be respectful of the family, and I don't know who all the family is. I haven't tried to search out. I haven't done internet investigations on the Berreth family. I haven't gone and tried to find out who and what. I would recognize Kelsey's dad and I would recognize Kelsey's mother, and neither of them were in the court hearings today. But that doesn't mean there weren't other family members there. Let's see. Who else was in? A couple of Dad with the Phone folks. One particular girl, I'm not gonna. She's a local here. She's actually become pretty good friends with my wife. She was there today, but she met my wife through this case, and she knows who we are through Dad with the Phone and the Woodland Park Underground. So that was awesome to have some friends and people there that are relatively interested in it. Deb, I can't remember Debbie's last name, but Debbie from the Facebook page, the people, the Kelsey Berreth, the people for the justice, the petition people. Deb is one of the petition people who took the petition that was signed around the conspiracy deal. Debbie was one of the ladies that took the petition to the U.S. District Court up in Colorado, or the Colorado State Court, or whatever. So Debbie was in the building. She came in. I went over and said hello to her. Who else was in there? A few other people. Sam sat right behind me. Sam, I like when Sam watches my back, so I couldn't get stabbed in the back from Aaron Frazee. Aaron Frazee sat in the back of the room, and Omar Frazee sat in the front of the room. The Frazees do not communicate. They do not shake hands. They do not talk to each other. They're not in communication. Are you listening to me? The Frazee family is dysfunctional. If you didn't know that the Frazee family was dysfunctional, well, now you know. Dad let a cat out of the bag. We have seen the dysfunction I have personally seen the dysfunction come from, like, Aaron Frazee when she tried to file a false report against me. That shows the dysfunction in their family. And then you see the family dynamics of them in the courtroom. Patrick Frazee is on trial for his life in a murder case, and mom and sister don't even talk. And so, and not on top of that, this dysfunctional family is trying to take custody of a child that I hope never, ever, ever has to bear to live or to be around that family. Um, let's talk about, if you're not familiar. First of all, let's. There are a couple of things I need to clarify for new people that are just joining Dad with the Phone on YouTube. I live here in Teller County. I've dealt with Teller County the court systems, dealt with law enforcement in and around the area. This morning, so I go through security first of all, and I have my Bubba cup. Y'all know my Bubba cup. If you watch Dad with the Phone on Facebook, you know my Bubba cup. Had my Bubba cup filled with fresh coffee, and I went through security downstairs. I put my coffee cup into the X-ray with my phone and a couple of other things. They go through the X-ray, and first of all, every one of the sheriff's officers in the building know exactly who I am. They call me by name. Hey, Michael, how's it going? I call them by name. Hey, Fainting Goat, how's it going? Hey, so, I'm just kidding. I call them by their nicknames. Come on, people. Um, so, Fainting Goat, the sheriff's officer who fainted at one of the press conferences, she was there. I love her, by the way. When I say I love her, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that in the sense of, I love her attitude. I love her look. I love the way she treats people. And she has always, always, always been super polite and respectful to me, both inside the bars and outside the bars. And when I'm talking about the bar, both inside the jail and outside the jail. So she was there. She's normally there on court duty. And so she was the one who I talked to first. How's it going? You having a good day? I did not ask her if she ate her Wheaties today. I should have. But anyway, when I put my coffee cup through the X-ray machine, there was this black spot that showed up at the bottom of my coffee cup. There was this black spot that showed up in the bottom of my coffee cup on the X-ray, and they were like, is that a hidden camera? And I was like, busted me, y'all got me. FBI, CBI, everybody come get Dad with the Phone. He's got a hidden camera in his Bubba cup. They were joking. I joked with them. I talk about sneaking through the thing. They're laughing, having a good time. I walk up. Now remember, most of the people have entered the courtroom. Most of the people have gone into the courtroom. I'm on like the 10-minute mark. I'm on the 5-minute mark trying to wait to go in to make sure everyone, I know my seat's safe. But damn it, I got a seat with my name on it in the courtroom, right? So I'm not really worried about not having a seat in there. So most of the people have gone in now. Most of the reporters, most of the family, most everybody. This is the snitch story, by the way. So I got my coffee cup. I got my telephone. I'm going to go in. I start to walk into the courtroom, and there's like 5 law enforcement agents or Teller County Sheriff's officers. And there's one older Teller County Sheriff that I don't recognize. He may not know who I am. Or he may know who I am. But nonetheless, I didn't recognize him. The other 4 officers that were standing there, I recognized. But this one particular officer, I didn't recognize. And as I'm walking through the court doors, coffee cup, telephone, everything, he says, hey, come here. You can't take that coffee in there. And I was like, I can't take my coffee in the courtroom. I've taken my coffee in the courtroom every time I've been here, but nonetheless. So I take my coffee cup, and I go put it over by the clerk's office, and I look, and I wanted to make sure there was a camera pointed at it, because I sure as hell didn't want no poison coffee, right? So I put my coffee cup down in an area that's been visible by camera, because I was like, if I get sick later and I end up dead, I'm going to go back and request this video footage. So I leave my coffee cup outside, and I walk into the courtroom, and what do I walk into? There are 5 reporters with cups of coffee and water and juice and all kinds of stuff Right there. Now, right on the door, right before you walk into the door of the courtroom, there is a sign that says no food or drink in the courtroom. And I'm like, what the hell is this? They stopped me with my coffee cup, but there are 5 reporters sitting on the front row with coffee cups. There's an officer with a coffee cup. Old Ma Frazee's got some water that somebody had brought her in a cup. The DA, the lawyers had poured Mrs. Frazee a glass of water. And then there were like 3 or 4. My wife had a coffee cup in the damn courtroom and water. And I'm like, why the hell did they take my coffee? Right? Why did they take my coffee? So what did I do? I do what any snitch does. And I walk right back out there to that officer. And I said, is there a reason? Is there a reason why you took my coffee? But there are 5 reporters in there with coffee cups? I need to know, like, if this was, hey, this is a danger because this is a big Bubba cup. Like, if my Bubba cup is just too big, just tell me that it's a weapon downstairs, right? And I said, I don't want to be a kid, you know, but there are 5 people in there with coffee cups. So I walk back in and I walk by my wife and she's got her coffee cup in her hand. And I tell her, I said, you better put that in your purse. And the officer hadn't walked in yet. And I said, she says, why? And I said, because you can't have your coffee in here. And my wife starts arguing with me. She's like, I came right past them sheriff's officers and they didn't say nothing to me. And then there was 3 people right in front of us that all had coffee. And I was like, and they didn't say nothing to them either. And they brought old Ma Frazee something to drink. And the person back here, Erin, she got coffee. Everybody got coffee but Dad with the phone. And then all of a sudden the sheriff's officer walks in and he starts looking and he sees a reporter. Ma'am, you're going to have to take your coffee outside. Ma'am, you're going to have to take your coffee out. I told my wife she should have put that up in her purse. And the guy said, ma'am, you're going to have to take your coffee outside. So then my wife goes out there. They all have to take. They took the water away from old Ma Frazee. And that was given to her from the defense attorney. So the defense attorney gave water to old Ma, but because the sign says no food or drink in the courtroom, the sheriff came in, took everybody's coffee, put it out in the hallway. And I take credit for snitching, and I'm sorry. I snitched on them because I got my coffee taken. That's a true-ass story that happened today in court. So we get into the court with no coffee. The public defenders. So everybody. Well, no, I protected myself because I got all them coffee cups out there. They wouldn't know. They wouldn't even know. They wouldn't know which coffee to poison. I'm sorry. I am kind of sorry. I'm sorry because I was sorry right after I did it. As soon as I walked out and said, why the hell do they all get coffee? And I don't. And I walked back in and he came in and took everybody's coffee. I was like, oh, that sucked. Now, what makes it worse? What even makes it worse? And true ass story. You can ask my wife. You can ask the people that were around me after one officer comes in and takes everybody's coffee and Mrs. Frazee's water, and he takes everybody's stuff outside. After that happens, another officer, I would swear on a Bible because people just won't believe me. But another officer walks down the aisle behind me, taps me on the shoulder, and says to me in a whisper voice, is anyone else in here with coffee we need to get removed? And I said, nope, I think you got them all. And so he kind of ratted me out in front of everyone. Anyway, I don't feel bad about it. I just am laughing because, no joke, another officer came in and was like, came in and said, did we get everybody's coffee, Michael? And sure enough, I tell him.
I will tell him real quick. It really sucked to what are you doing? That's my water.
Oh, it really sucked.
No, if you get my coffee taken from me in court, I'm probably not bringing you water on the porch. Anyways.
Oh, I don't get
it just sucked because first I verbally asked the security guard as I came in, because I had a metal cup and I was a little sketched about that, and I had water, and you have to go through security, and I was like, is this stuff okay? And she says, yeah, it's absolutely okay. So they should have said it's okay, except there is one sign on the court, but if you don't look there, I was waving to the cops. All of them waved to me. All of them recognized me. All kind of friendly, holding my big, huge metal cup. So it did suck when that happened. So.
Can I have a drink of your water?
It's cucumber water.
Okay, I won't drink it all.
Regular water. Anyways.
So anyway.
It is funny that he's the only, for some reason, they immediately triggered the law, this massive recollection of...
The law happened when Dad with the phone walks in with coffee. They were not allowing it. So I ruined coffee for everybody today. I take full responsibility. I snitched out all the reporters. I snitched out on the Omar that these people had snuck in coffee, and that's my fault. So all right, so now we boil down to it's time to get to court, and the defense attorneys pile in, the prosecuting attorneys pile in, Colorado CBI Greg Slater is in the building. He's sitting right in front of me, one row in front of me. I was on the third row. There was a row full of reporters, and then on the front row is for official personnel, police officers, investigators, extra DA, extra defense attorneys, stuff like that. Or if you're a family member, you could sit up there. A lot of times they'll let the family member sit on that front row. And so CBI Greg Slater was sitting in front of me. So I was really kind of interested to note if he was going to testify today, because when the judge walked in, everybody stood up, obviously, and Patrick comes in. Now, something that hasn't happened in the past that happened today, and this happened at the request of the defense. Patrick came in wearing the full flight jacket, the green jumpsuit, shackles, and the handcuffs. When he sat down, he immediately turned to his defense attorney, looked down at his handcuffs. His defense attorney looked up at the guard and said, remove the handcuffs. And they removed at least one handcuff. I'm not 100% sure they removed both handcuffs. I still think he was shackled by one handcuff, and he was definitely still shackled at the feet. But I believe this is the first time that they've actually removed a handcuff for Patrick to be able to take notes. And so, peace. Am I back? Buffer. No, I had to take a phone call. Make sure I'm back. Buffering. Am I back live? Yep, okay, I'm back live. All right, so they remove one handcuff, and they remove the shackles so that he can take notes. The judge comes in and gets straight to business, basically. Says, all right, we'll get this motion hearing. He calls the court into session, says Patrick is present, the defense attorneys are present, the state's present, the court reporter's present, everybody's present. Let's get this thing on the roll. So he kicks off the court proceedings and says we got motions to hear, and I understand we have some witness testimony to hear. At that moment, my ears perk up, because when witness testimony comes, that means we're going to get nuggets. We're going to get information. We're going to get things that we're talking about. Affidavit, witness testimony, we're going to hear two things that should have or could have happened. I would have thought that they would have sequestered every witness in the room at that moment. I would have thought that Greg Slater, the officer, would have had to leave. I would have thought that Old Ma would have had to leave. I would have thought that Aaron Frazee would have had to leave. I would have thought that Dad with the phone would have had to leave. But they didn't remove any witnesses. The reason why I'm saying this is because if they were going to call me, they wouldn't want me having knowledge of another witness's testimony. And so normally when they're going to have a witness testify in court, they're going to remove any other witness who may be called in this case. But they don't call, because I don't know who that one is. They didn't remove me from the witness list, or they didn't remove me from the courtroom before this witness started to testify. And that is telltale to me, because they didn't remove Greg Slater, they didn't remove Omar, and they didn't remove a few other witnesses that I know are in the courtroom. The Kleins may be a witness. A couple other people that were in the courtroom are definitely witnesses. And since they had a witness testify today on the stand, and they didn't remove us, it gave me, it's a little telltale, right? And so they call Mary, my freaking brain just went blank. Longmire. Mary Longmire to the stand. Now, Mary Longmire had 2 interviews with Patrick. The first one was on December 21st, and the second one was on December 26th. If you have read the motions, by the way, shout out to Abby over at the Facebook page, The People For. She read through a lot of the motions that were released. I had read some of them, but I hadn't read all of them. And then she read through some of them online. You can go listen to her. She reads through some of them. And then my wife and I read some of them yesterday online. And so one of the motions is to suppress. Longmire is a great series, by the way. One of the motions was to suppress the testimony of one Mary Longmire. Now, Mary Longmire is a DHS Department of Human Services of Teller County employee. She's been an employee of the Department of Human Services for 15 years, and part of her role, there goes the Teller County Sheriff's Officer right there. Part of her role is to do initial evaluations with people that are involved in the system, getting involved in this Department of Health system. So what happened on December 21st? Patrick Frazee was arrested. Old Ma Frazee was detained, and Kaylee was taken into custody by Department of Human Services of Teller County, Mary Longmire, and her people, and she was brought. Kaylee was brought to Department of Human Services by the Woodland Park Police Department. This all happened within a very short time of Patrick being arrested. By the time they got Kaylee, by the way, in court, they don't use Kaylee's name, but the DA slipped up a few times and used Kaylee's name in court. And so I'm interested about those slip-ups, because they referred to Kaylee as KP in court. They don't even to explain who KP was, they would say Patrick's daughter, will refer to her as KP. But the DA slipped up a few times during the questioning and said Kaylee's name out loud and said, "Did you have Kaylee?" And that's an interesting. It's an interesting court proceeding. I'm not 100% sure if there is legal ramifications when speaking of an adolescent in the court system. But for some reason, the DA wanted to refer to Patrick's daughter as KP, and but there were a few times that she slipped up and used Kaylee's name. So DHS takes custody of Kaylee, and within 30 minutes, the Berreths take custody, physical custody. They show up, and within 30 minutes, DHS has released custody of Kaylee to the Berreths. Now, DHS retained legal custody because of the circumstances. So there's some circumstances when there are some circumstances when there are infants and babies and children involved, and the mother goes missing, and the other parent is incarcerated, and in this particular case, the other parent is incarcerated in conjunction with maybe a criminal charge of why the other parent disappeared, and so. It sounded like, I'm not 100% sure, but it sounded like DHS had prior knowledge that the arrest was coming. It sounded like that DHS had prepared, they already knew who was going to, they were going to need to contact. Because what happened on the 21st is they did interviews quickly with the Berreths. They did a phone interview with Sheila. They did a phone interview with Aaron. And then they scheduled a emergency meeting with Patrick. And this is all taking place on the 21st, the day that Patrick gets arrested. So Patrick gets arrested. Kaylee gets put into the temporary custody of DHS, and then is placed in the physical custody with the Berreths, but is still under the legal custody of DHS. What had to happen within 3 days, or not 3 days, what had to happen though, expedited, was they had to expedite the special hearing because the Berreths don't reside in Colorado. There is this due process that has to take place if they're going to remove the child from Colorado. And so immediately DHS get this stuff filed so that the Berreths can not only take custody of the baby, but they are able to leave the state with the baby. And so they start this due process. And initially, some of the things that have to happen in this due process is that she went out and visited Sheila Frazee at the property. She also talked more extensively with Aaron Frazee over the phone. What I gathered without her saying anything is that Sheila and Aaron are not necessarily fit to take care of the child, and thus the custody of the child was put into the Berreth family and entrusted with the Berreth family. And they made that decision pretty quickly, within 30 minutes of actually having physical custody and legal custody because they have to get judges to sign orders and all this stuff to take over custody of Kaylee. And so they did all of that. They get Kaylee with the Berreths. This all happens on the 21st. And then at some point on the 21st, Mary Longmire makes a trip up to Divide, the Teller County Jail. And there was a lot of talk about the actual room in which the interview takes place. Now, to put this in perspective, I know exactly the room this interview took place in. I have actually been in this room. I also know that very close to this room are the traditional visiting cells. There are holding cells, or there are visiting cells that are set up. They're under lock and key. They have glass. They have a bench or a little stool. They have a little like table. Then there's glass. And then on the other side, there is a locked room where visitors can come in and sit down and talk. They did not meet in these traditional visiting cells. Those I would call cells because they actually have doubled as holding cells in the Teller County Jail. When all the holding cells fill up, they will put people into these visiting cells if that's all the room they have. That is not where Patrick met with Mary Longmire. In the same area, though, right next to these visiting cells where you could have a visit from an outside person but not be in physical contact with them, there is a room with a table, a television, a telephone, and like a little round table with 3 or 4 chairs around it. There are whiteboards, and then there are like public notices around arraignments. There are charge boards. So like they have like a class 1 felony, what you could face, a class 2 felony, a class 3 felony, what this room is set up for is for teleconferencing with a judge during what they call an arraignment. When you go to jail, there is a constitutional right that you will be arraigned in front of a judge. I think it's within 24 or 48 hours or something like that. Well, with technology, they've created this teleconferencing systems where you can have a teleconference with a judge in Cripple Creek from inside the jail, and it's just like you being in court with them. This is what this room is. It is set up like a conference room. They call it the arraignment room. What else happens in this conference room is this is where you would meet if your lawyers came and talked to you. This is where you may meet if police officers came to do an interrogation with you. You may meet in this room. If you were arrested, and this could be used as an interrogation room, and this room is outside of booking. So literally you have the booking area, you have holding cell 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you have 2 or 3 visitor cells, and then you have this arraignment room, and then there's the big desk where all the officers sit, and it's the holding. They got their computers, they do the booking, they have the fingerprint machines and all that stuff. All of that is literally right outside this arraignment room. This arraignment room is behind secure, it is part of the secured facility. In other words, you couldn't, if you broke out of the arraignment room, because that's like a normal door on it. It's not like a cell door. It's like a normal door. If you broke out of there, you would still be in a secure lockdown facility inside the booking area. And so the arraignment room, although it's not a lockdown cell, it is still behind the locked down area of the facility. The public cannot just walk into the arraignment room. You have to be let in to the booking area and then escorted into the arraignment room. The reason that's important is because you have to understand what the defense is trying to do when they talk about Patrick in this room. They're trying to give this image, this picture, that he was interrogated, that he was locked down, that he was suppressed, that he should have been Mirandized, that he should have been given the right to counsel during these interrogations. That very well may be true. But I want you to have a visual picture that Patrick wasn't in handcuffs when he went into this arraignment room. He wasn't in shackles when he went into this arraignment room. He was in Crocs, a socks, and the green jumpsuit. That's it. He didn't have shackles on. They didn't handcuff him to the table. They didn't handcuff him to the chair. He was able to meet with this lady just as close as if that lady was sitting on my porch and we were able to talk to each other. And there was no restraint on Patrick. Even so that once the lady walks in, she sits down, they bring Patrick in, Patrick sits down. He, again, is not under any restraint. The officer walks out of the room. I believe they left the door open, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to check with my wife on the notes. I believe the door was open and or it could have been shut, but it was unlocked. So if it was shut and it was unlocked, then it was privacy. If it was open and unlocked, it was for security. So it was, but I think it was probably open. It may have been cracked. It may not have been fully shut. It may have been cracked for some semi-privacy. I'm not 100% sure on the report of that. I need to ask Sam about that, if the door was opened or closed. The reason why is because you need to have an idea and a picture. But if the witness has nothing to do with your testimony, they have no need to remove other witnesses. It would make no difference. Well, the reason why it would make a difference only is because why am I not getting live video chats here? All right. The reason why it would make a difference is because they're trying to say that Patrick was locked down and under interrogation. Now, with her giving the testimony, I don't know. The only reason I have been told by the DA's office is they don't let witnesses hear each other's testimonies because they don't want to let those testimonies crisscross or me hear something and repeat it or whatever. Anyway, nonetheless, Patrick is in a room, the advisement room. He's not under lock and key. He's having Oh, I gotcha. I'm just now seeing them. Yeah, I know. Y'all talk amongst yourselves or listen. I saw one chat pop up, and then I saw one. I didn't see one. So either way, I thought y'all were having a conversation. I was trying to answer a question, but now I'm confused where I'm at. Patrick is in the arraignment room with Mary Longmire of DHS on December 21st. She has about a 45-minute interview where I have to believe that she has this interview after she has already released Kaylee to the Berreths. I believe they clarified that today. If my memory serves me, they clarified that this meeting took place after she had contacted the Berreths, after she had contacted Omar and Aaron. And so this was the end of the process, but it was the beginning of that expedition that needed to happen so that Kaylee could leave the state. So she goes in and meets with Patrick on the 21st, and she asks him general questions about Kaylee. All the questions were respectfully about Kaylee. What kind of food she eats, what's her habits, what are her relationships with her parents, her grandparents, and different stuff like that. They were all based around basic social, the baby. And then at some point, they have this conversation. He answers those questions. Patrick was respectful. Patrick was polite. He answered he was professional. The questions, he answered all the questions. He didn't refuse to answer any questions. At some point, she does tell him at the beginning of the conversation that he does have the right not to answer any of these questions. She doesn't Mirandize him by saying what you say can and will be used against you, but she openly gives the impression and openly gives and says that you are not being forced to answer these questions. I am asking you these questions because you're incarcerated on the charges of murder. She does say this to him. You're being incarcerated on the charges of murder, and we don't know where Kelsey is, and so we have to handle Kaylee, and we're trying to handle this. And on top of that, there is a competition for the custody of Kaylee. She makes that clear that had it only been the Berreths, she may not have had to go into in-depth questions about social upbringing and different things like that. She makes it, there was a competition happening for the custody of Kaylee from Aaron and from Sheila and from the Berreths. And so she had to get clear information on, does Kaylee have any allergies? Does all the normal stuff that you would tell someone who's going to take care of your kids. So that's kind of the general questioning that went on the 21st with Patrick. And they're just trying, and it was really based around the well-being and the health of Kaylee. I got you. What are you talking about? It's interesting. There's no side chat. My thoughts on that. Yeah, no, I got you. So, yeah, we definitely are, we're discussing this conversation. Now, this is where things get weird or not weird. This is where things change. Mary Longmire has that conversation with Patrick on the 21st. Between the 21st and the 26th, on the 22nd, many of you will remember this. They schedule an emergency motion hearing in the child custody case for the 22nd. They then relinquish custody at this point to the Berreths. They do the interstate agency communication so that Kaylee can leave the state of Colorado, and they go through this process, and this all happens pretty quickly. On the 26th of December, at some point, DHS needs to do a more extensive interview with Patrick. So they schedule an appointment through the jail to come see Patrick. They don't schedule through Patrick, they schedule through the jail to come. So Mary Longmire shows up at the Teller County Jail, and the jailers say, well, Patrick's busy with his attorney right now. You can wait, and we'll let you see him when he's done. The meeting with the attorney goes on for a while, and Mrs. Longmire, at the suggestion of the jailer, says, well, maybe you want to come back later tonight. His meeting's going long. We don't know how long it's going to go. Why don't you come back tonight after dinner, after shift change, and come? And so they schedule a meeting now with the jail for 7 p.m. that night. At that time, on December 26th, Mrs. Longmire comes back in, again, meets in the arraignment room. Patrick is brought up out of his holding cells and is there to meet with Mrs. Longmire. He meets on December 26th with Mrs. Longmire, Mary Longmire, for around an hour and a half, 90 minutes. In this 90-minute conversation, there is a more in-depth into Patrick. There are questions around Patrick's drug use, alcohol use. Now they're digging deeper into the character of Patrick, the way Patrick was brought up. The way Kelsey was, the way Kelsey kind of her background a little bit. More in depth on the family structure, because DHS still legally had custody of Kaylee. Even though physical custody had been granted to the Berreth, DHS still retained legal custody of Kaylee. Throughout this conversation, a lot of the conversation was all simply based on Kaylee, how she was brought up, how Patrick was brought up, and around the family structure in which she was being raised in. Something to note, Mary Longmire was very clear that Patrick expressed nothing but a love for Kaylee, expressed nothing of concern for Kaylee's safety because of Patrick. He was polite. He was a good father. He spent time with his daughter. During this time, she asked him specific questions around custody of Kaylee. How was Kaylee's custody being handled since they weren't married? And he explains that at first I have Kaylee during the day because her mom works, and then she can go to work with me. And then at some point in their relationship, the custody kind of changed. This is what he explains to her, that he would take her Sunday through Wednesday, and she would take Wednesday through Saturday, and that it was a 50-50 custody. He explains to her kind of how the exchanges happen on a regular basis, how they would exchange custody. Did they spend time outside of custody and all of that stuff? But then at some point in her questioning, and I have to tell you, she is asking questions. She is driving this conversation. Patrick is not just rambling man, right? He's not just ranting. He's not a chit chatter. She is driving the questions that are going on with Patrick. She's asking specifics and different things like that. At some point in the conversation on December 26th, the conversation gets real specific around Thanksgiving and the period surrounding Thanksgiving. Now, the questions are framed in a way that are asking, where did Kaylee go on Thanksgiving? What were the plans for Kaylee on Thanksgiving 2018? And Patrick gives this
what
tells
time are we gonna go?
What time is it?
It's almost 2.
Almost 2. Let's leave at 2. We'll leave right at 2.
That's in like 1 minute.
Oh, let's leave at 2:05 so I can wrap this up.
Okay.
Y'all heard it. I gotta go. The questions change. They change at some point to go to, tell me what happened around Thanksgiving. And so Patrick tells a story around Thanksgiving. Kaylee was going to go stay with his mom or her mom in the morning on Thanksgiving, and then Kaylee was going to come stay with Patrick on Thanksgiving afternoon. At some point, they ask about, well, what happened the day before Thanksgiving? Or this is what Mary asked. What happened with Kaylee on the day before Thanksgiving? Well, such and such happened. such and such happened. We did this. He tells the story of going out to water. People ask, why were they out late the night before? They were watering cows. This story is not only told to Mary Longmire from Patrick during this conversation, it is also told to Kelsey's parents from Kelsey on Thanksgiving Day before Safeway trip. So they tell the story about the taking care of the cows. He tells the story about mom running to Walmart getting me some medicine at like 1 a.m. And then he tells that Kelsey took the baby and was going to keep the baby, or Kelsey was going to keep the baby for Thanksgiving morning, and then he was going to pick the baby up Thanksgiving evening or Thanksgiving afternoon. They go through. He goes through his kind of schedule with her, and she talks about it a little bit. She talks about them having a weird conversation about their relationship. She then begins to dig, like, well, when was the last time you talked to Kelsey? When was the last time all of this? When was the last time you texted her? So she dug around a little bit about Patrick's communication with Kelsey on or around for Thanksgiving, the day after. She asked specific questions about when's the last time you spoke with Kelsey. Patrick gives answers. When's the last time you texted with Kelsey about Kaylee? So she framed her questions always asking about Kaylee, but she definitely was getting in there trying to find out what Patrick's story is about when he talked to Kelsey last. What was his last communications with Kelsey? What was said in text messages and what was said on the phone and different things like that. This is where the defense took issue. And this is where the defense goes to his line of questioning. This is where the defense argues with the judge that, hey, this is a man who's locked up. This is a woman who knows the man locked up has an attorney. This is a man who was speaking with his attorney prior to speaking with these DHS officers or DHS employees. And then on top of that, she is speaking to him directly about the criminal case. And this is where the defense took problem with the line of questioning that was happening on December 26th. And thus the reason they're trying to suppress that interview and that conversation. We didn't get real detail on exact things that happened. And at one point, the attorney asked, where did the referral come from to start this investigation? Because a referral came in that triggered this investigation happening so fast. And she was hesitant to relieve that source. Now, at some point, they all walk up to the stand. The judge turned on a white noise machine so you couldn't hear what was happening at the stand. They have a discussion. They walk back. The judge orders Mary Longmire to reveal the source of the referral, and it turns out the referral came directly from Woodland Park PD. So Woodland Park PD made the arrest, or the night before they made the arrest, they were like, we're about to arrest Patrick. We're sending in a referral that should get started on Patrick. And so this is where you're on it. Oh. Somebody timed I might have timed out the right person. Somebody timed them out. Looks like we had a troll enter the building. So all of this big argument, all of this testimony, all of this stuff that went down with Patrick and Mary Longmire was a great portion of the motion hearing today, and the judge did not even rule on the motion yet. What they are now asking is that they suppress the testimony of December 26th. And that could be good for Patrick, because if they can't talk about him telling the story about Thanksgiving and all that, they can't use that against him in court. If they can actually use Mary's testimony to use just I guess all these new trolls are showing up, but they're going out as fast as they come in. Good thing I'm ending this video. We'll talk about more motions later tonight. You get your questions out. I know y'all like Dad with a Phone, but we've been going for 70 minutes. I got to go do some other stuff today. We will I'm going to talk through the other motions that happened, because they did rule on those motions a little bit. They will have to supply the name of an alternative suspect within 35 days of trial. Actually, it's a little shorter, by September 16th. And so they will have to supply that by September 16th if they're going to come up with a alternative suspect. They are very much protecting the jurors. The judge ruled against giving anyone the addresses of the jurors, and for sure said law enforcement is not to be involved in any way, shape, or form in jury selection. They should not be doing background checks. They should not be looking into the jurors. Jurors should not be subject to the things of these background checks, law enforcement, all this BS crap. And I am totally glad that the judge ruled on that one. He ruled, and then they were going to rule on some jury stuff later today. So it's kind of a quick stuff. You can go back and watch it all. If you didn't see it, go back and watch this video. Hit like, subscribe, like you're always supposed to do. And if you want to support Dad with the Phone, you can always PayPal me some money at Michael Dalton, the number 2 at mac.com. If you don't want to support me, don't cry about it, because I don't either. I gotta go support my family though, so I gotta go do some work. I am gonna have to figure out how to do a 3-week court trial, and so that is going to be an interesting one. Other than that, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting. If you want to see the only video of Patrick today entering the court building, you can check that out on Dad with a Phone. Let me warn you now, it's not the best video. It is simply, who will the alternative suspect be? They haven't named it yet, but how about a KK? Can we get a KK? Can I get a K? Other than that, no big bombshells other than the testimony. Some of the testimony given today, though, cleared up some stuff. Like some of the stories and stuff about the text messages, that cleared up some stuff, because some of those stories around Patrick and her having this text message back and forth saying, "Do you still love me?" That was told to Mary Longmire, and so that's where some interesting facts come from, is from Mary Longmire's testimony and Mary Longmire's report. And so, peace. We're out. I think I'm out. Let's X this out. Boom.